Greetings, YouTubers. On this cold January day, we are going to be going inside because, as you can see, it is cold out here tonight, going down below zero, and it is Fahrenheit, so it's a good day to get inside the garage or evening and start working on this 2009 Subaru. Picked this up back in the summer for $300, and she has an engine knock. Didn't know what I was going to do with it, but the more I look at it and the more I've been tinkering with it, I think I'm just going to go ahead and pull the motor out and try to fix it because it does move. The transmission seems to be okay, and I've got it jacked up on all four wheels right now. And this is a 2.5 EJ25, just a single cam overhead cylinder set up on it, not the dual, thank goodness, because if it was dual, I probably wouldn't mess with it. A little more involved, but this one doesn't look like it might not be too bad. Now, I did go ahead and put a coil on it. The old coil, which is sitting right there, it had a miss in it, and I couldn't keep it running, but I got a new coil to put on it for like 30 bucks on eBay, free shipping, and now it seems to idle pretty good, but it has a horrible knock. So what we're going to do, we'll start it up. I'm going to let you listen to it. Hopefully I don't throw a rod through the block because I'd hate to do that. And me and my tiny little garage, that's all I got. Not much space, but we're going to see if we can get this thing back on the road. For the meantime, let's go ahead and start it up here and let you listen to it. And it's going to knock. So, whoa, hear that? I drop it down in gear, it takes away some of the noise, but you can hear it knocking. Woohoo! So she's lit up like a Christmas tree on the dash, on the cluster there. So, like I said, I got all four wheels up in the air, I got blocks under it and everything. It should make it a little bit easier to get under there and then hook a few things. And from all the research and other videos I've seen, I should be able to get this out. What I'm going to do is go ahead and disassemble all the small stuff. I don't know yet if I'm going to pull the heads off and just pull the block out. I may go ahead and just pull the whole thing out at once. I do have enough room in here to go ahead and get an engine hoist in here and kind of, you know, get it out of the floor, on the floor here. Once I clean up some other things here. And go from there. So, like I said, the body on this thing is in pretty good shape. The car is in really good shape. If it had a lot of rust holes in it, rotted out underneath, I would not be going through all this trouble fixing it. So, there's the badge on the front, and you can see the side of it, all in great shape. But you're probably not going to be able to see very much. So, not even a cracked window, and you even got a sunroof up there. So, I figured it's probably worth pulling this thing apart and getting it fixed, maybe putting some new bearings in it. My plan is just to fix what is wrong with it. I might need a crank. I don't know. It's probably got maybe 2 spun bearings. Who knows? But something in there is making a horrible noise. And right now, my guess is it's in the crank because these do have a lot of problems with the cranks, losing oil pressure, the bearings and all that. Crazy thing is, I have oil pressure. When I shut it off, the oil light comes on. And when I start it up, it goes off. So something's a little wonky in there. So, I guess we'll go ahead and start ripping this thing apart slowly here and see what we can get into. Hey, let me know where you're watching from right now. Alright, how about that? She's in service mode. Kind of like that. Interesting. Too bad a lot of manufacturers don't do that. Basically, you just take the 2 bolts out here, put them down here, and it gives your hood a lot more whoop action. So, lots of room there to work in there. Alright guys, so we're kind of, you know, taking this thing apart here. And one thing you can do is, get an old camera, boy, take lots and lots of pictures. You will thank yourself later as you take these pictures because you can go back and reference them, you know, a little bit later as you're putting everything back together because it's so easy to kind of get things, you know, backwards, and sometimes, you know, it takes 10 minutes to figure out something when all you got to do is go back to your camera and just kind of look at what you did. So make sure you take lots and lots of pictures. Alright, before I go underneath and unhook the exhaust, I wanted to go ahead and see if this exhaust piece here is going to come loose. This EGR2. These are, what am I using? I am using a I don't know, 7/8. Pulling this really hard. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this one. Well, actually, there it goes. Alright, so I was worried about this because a lot of times you can get into a lot of issues. The engine is cold, by the way. Good. Alright, so let's go underneath. Now, I did want to show you that I actually got all the bolts out of the bottom of the exhaust here. I'm totally shocked. As you can see, I can move this exhaust. And what we have under here are 3 bolts on this side. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. Where they bolt up, there's one right there, and there's one back there. And 3 on the driver's side. It's pretty easy to get to, and you can see there they are. And like I said, I'm just totally shocked that I got those out without twisting them off or anything like that. I did put some penetrating oil on there. So there's only 3 on each side. So I'm happy we got those out there. So that's that. And all of them came out except for one. I think one stud stayed in. Yeah, well, 2 studs stayed in, but that's okay. So there they are. And I did use a 14mm half-inch drive on those. So don't use a 3/8. You'll just probably snap it off. But this is a 12 point. You should probably use a 6. But it worked for me. Harbor Freight tool. And I will drain the oil out here after a while once I get some stuff tore apart. And you can see how my all 4 wheels are actually up on jack stands except for this one here. This one's got a little slice cut in the arm there. And we'll put something into there in a little bit. But I'm not going to have to spend a whole lot of time under here. Mainly changing out the oil a little bit later. And what I'm going to do next up on top here, I'm just going to start generally just taking off some things here like the air cleaner. Eventually drain the radiator fluid out, the antifreeze and all that. And start disassembling some things in no particular order. We'll have to take this plastic piece out here in order to get part of this radiator out. And this radiator is a little complicated. It's got several little hoses on the bottom. But I'll do my best to explain. Like I said, this is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial. But this will give you some idea if you want to tackle your engine, I guess. So we'll go ahead and start taking some more stuff apart here. Alright, like I said earlier, I kind of wondered what I got myself into here, but everything's going apart fairly easy. These were just 2 10mm bolts holding this on here, and they're up on the top. And I did unhook some of this wiring here, so amazing how much more room you start to see once you unhook some of this stuff. So what we're going to do is going to get this little plastic shield out of the way. There's 2 little push-pull pins on one side. On the top, and there's one right here, and then you got a big bolt here just out of nowhere. The 10 or 12 millimeter bolts. This guy here, this is kind of a odd looking guy here, and this is a looks like a 12 millimeter. So once we get this out of the way, we can actually get onto our radiator petcock drain, which is right here. We can drain this radiator out. And there it is in all of its glory, ready for someone to tap it. So we'll go ahead and open this up and let it drain for a while. All right, we'll let that there kind of do its thing. No, that is antifreeze, believe it or not. That's green. Looks like oil, don't it? But that's kind of a dark green antifreeze there. So there's that. And also, here's that plug. It's a tiny little plug. So if you lose this, you're going to have trouble finding another one. So I would put this in a little baggie and put it somewhere, put it in your glove box, label it, or you can just screw it back in the bottom of the radiator once everything's done draining, but don't lose that. Alright, so, you know, we're just having fun here. We've taken off a couple of brackets on the top of this radiator. Kind of put them in the yellow pail here with little bolts. Get the radiator hose off here. Pretty easy to do. And this radiator, wow, I'm surprised how loose it is. It may come out easier than I thought. So I think we just got a few things underneath to unhook. And this should come out, but still draining. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and unhook some little wires and stuff here. Like I said, no particular way to do this. Just do what's, you know, works for you. All right, so we're moving right along here. Now, if you're here just to take out this radiator on this Forester, you want to know how to do it. Well, over here you got a little plug. You got to be very careful of these. A lot of these you got to push up with a little clip here on the back side. You got a plug right here, and of course we got the radiator hose off, and we got these clamps off here on the top, which are over there. So let's go underneath. Now on this side, on the driver's side, there's a splice shield that you got to pop off. It's laying back there on the floor. Over here, I find it's a lot easier just to go ahead and pop these 2 radiator hose off here, these little hoses here. These are actually transmission cooler lines. And you got another plug right here. This is for that reservoir. Then after you do that, the reservoir, the bottom of the windshield washer, I believe that's what that is there. Could be the radiator. I had to go up on top and look and see which one it is. There's a plug right here. You push down on that little tab and it'll release this wire right here. A lot of people forget about this. And then back here is your hose for your bottom radiator. Just take a big old pry bar like I got right here. Get behind the manifold here, exhaust, and loosen that up. And luckily for me, the clamp's in the right place. And would you believe this radiator is ready to come out? All we gotta do is pull it straight up. So we'll look at this radiator once we take it out. So surprisingly, it looks like this is ready to come out. I don't think there's anything else under there that's hidden. And we should be able to pull it straight up, which is great. It's a little easier than I thought it was going to be. Of course, we'll have to fight with this bottom hose, but we'll just go ahead and just... There we go. Just like that. How about that? Yay! And there's what it looks like once it's out. We got a lot more room here to work with. Get the rest of this engine out. And like I said, there's that plug on that side right here. On this side, spin around. There's a plug on this side over here that you got to take off. Kind of hanging down there. And these two lines right here. This just makes it easier. You don't have to crawl up under here and let all this fluid leak on your face and stuff. Let's look at this radiator. And there's the back of it. There's the hose, radiator hose, and here's the other two little lines. I just flip them around like that, and there they are. And there's that plug there, and the other plug right about there on that side, on the bottom of this reservoir. This is actually a, that's coolant. Okay, so that's a radiator coolant. So that's all there is to take that out. So it's a little bit different from car to car, so aren't you glad you're checking in? And of course on the bottom they got this heat shield here from that exhaust so it doesn't, you know, melt this plastic on the bottom of the radiator. It's just a heat shield there. So gotta keep that on there. Alright, at this point, one smart thing you can go ahead and do is go ahead and get this crank bolt out, because a lot of people have trouble getting this out. It's easier to knock this out, try to get it out with all the belts and but still in time and everything. So what I do, I got a 22 mil socket, 1/2 inch ratchet here, and just take a hammer, and this is my good ratchet, but you know, it'll sacrifice for a good reason. And we'll just hit it like an impact wrench. Try not to hit the alternator. How about that? That just saves so much hassle, because these can be real bare to get out. It's not a terribly big bolt, but if you take this engine all apart and try to get this out by itself, you don't have anything really to hold it with. So that's how I do that usually. So now that's out of the way, what I'm going to do now off camera is just go ahead and pull off the alternator, get some wires out of the way, take some more pictures. I'm going to take the air conditioning unit, I'm going to leave it together. I'm just going to kind of pull it out of the way with some bungee cords. Same thing with the power steering. I'm going to pull it off the side and eventually get all these wires and stuff off here. Then we'll start working on this intake, get this, plug them off. So hopefully it won't be too bad. Alright, we'll get this coil out of the way. Pretty simple to do. Like I said, this is a brand new one. Just got 4 wires and a plug here. And bolts are kind of hard to get into, but you can get into them. These are little tins. Alright, so we got this bracket out here, this complicated thing. Like I said, take plenty of pictures. We got our adjuster here loose on the alternator. I'll mark the belt. We got Alt 8LT on it, so we don't mess that up. There's another bolt that goes in this bracket right here. I'm going to leave that on. Alternator, thankfully, comes out fairly easy. If I can get a nice grip on it there. Usually they come out pretty easy anyway, but we'll wiggle that around and get that out. Alright, there that is, and seems to be pretty good. And here's that wiring harness for the alternator. Little things like this. You see how this goes under this AC line? Well, a lot of you would probably just throw that over there in a big hurry. This is why I take lots of pictures. You want to have that go under so it's, you know, short enough to kind of go in there. So now we're going to take this air conditioning unit off. Alright, a little bit of a change of plans here. Forget this air conditioning compressor right now, because that thing actually has, I can't find the adjustment for the belt. So we're going to pull the power steering unit off. Yeah, power steering unit. And this has just 3 bolts on it. I'm taking it off with the bracket. You got this long bolt that goes on the bottom, and you have 2 shorter bolts that go on the top. One here, and actually the one shorter one goes on the top. The longer one goes on this side, closer to the driver's side, and the shorter one goes on the bottom. And now we can just kind of put this out of the way. So, kind of goes like this. The big one goes in down here, right there, something like that. Let me get you just a little bit better of a shot. The smaller one goes there, the long one goes there, and the short one goes up here. So I'm going to leave those in there for now, and that way I won't get them messed up, lost, or anything. A lot of little sensors here. You really got to take your time in hooking all these. Some of these are a little tricky. You know, you don't want to break any of these, so it takes a little while to get these loose, but I got them all loose without breaking them, thank goodness. Alright, after wrestling off this air conditioning unit, I finally got it off, but I can't find an adjustment, which is crazy, because, you know, I got the belt off by taking off these 3 big 15 millimeter actually hold the bracket on here. So this is off, and I flip this over, I don't see an adjustment for this belt, which is insane. It just bolts up like this. Wow, that's crazy. Unless I'm missing something here, but you got 4 bolts here, 3 bolts, 4 bolts, yeah, 4 bolts that hold this pump on this bracket, and that's it. There's no adjustment, so that's crazy. Anyway, we'll put this off to the side. Alright, so I got this air conditioning unit off the side. I got this bracket off here. We're taking off these fuel injector wires. We got them laying off the side. That is actually back there. I got my oil spout here off, and I got my little bolts in a baggie in there, so I can't lose those. And you just gotta be real careful because you got a lot of sensors here, and so far I haven't broken anything, which I'm shocked. So I gotta get this fuel line off here, and we'll just continue to take off some small things here, and take this bracket off on this side, and slowly work our way here, taking this intake off. Alright, after spending about a half hour unhooking everything, we got our intake loose here. I've got to go ahead and get this fuel line over here unhooked. It takes a special adapter, and this should pretty much come out. I might have a couple little things snagging me up here, but it's pretty much ready to come out, but I've got to get these fuel lines over here unhooked. Said a lot of connectors, take lots of pictures so you know how wires go, how wires route around certain things and all that. And I did the same thing on the passenger side and the driver's side, just pictures, and take your time, don't break wires. You can see we're down to the block, and this is a EJ25. Alright, one quick thing here. I was able to get this fuel line unhooked. It takes a special adapter tool, but I used one of these little guys here. These open up to a point, and I just kind of slid it over here. If you can get it on those 2 little tabs on the inside there, push it down in the far enough, it'll release this. So those there are unhooked. And all the intake bolts are out, and I believe there's 2, 4, there's 4 on each side. And here's one of them. These are little 14 millimeter bolts, so those are out of the way. And now we are ready to go ahead and pull this out of here. So hopefully everything is unhooked. I've double checked. Alright, well, come loose fairly easy. And on the back. There we go. Alright, so it's out. Now I want to tip this at an angle and show you something here on the back here. You have a bolt here, a bolt here. These will cause you a little bit of hassle because here's this wiring harness. The bolts go here and here. And you got a couple plugs back here. Don't even unhook these. Don't even worry about it. Just unhook this wiring harness from the throttle body here for the intake. And it works out a lot better. So let's take this off, put it in the floor, and look at it real quick. And here is the back part of it where you really can't see where those 2 bolts are for that wiring harness, that bracket. And everything here is disconnected, and the gaskets are still on the engine block. But other than that, it wasn't too bad to get off. If you get hung up, you'll have to go back and look and see if there's something catching it. And if I spin it around this way, you can see I got all my hoses here hooked up still. I loosened this bolt up because I thought maybe that was going to help me out, but that really you didn't have to do much with it. So there's a look at that. And here's a look at the top of the block. There's the old gasket. It's there and there. Really all I have to do is kind of pull this wiring harness back. It's cold in here. This wiring harness is really stiff. I'm going to have to warm it up in here a little bit later and just kind of grab this and flip it all the way back best I can. The only thing I've got to unhook here is this coolant hose tube that runs across the engine. And basically, we're down to the short block here. So there's the back of the engine block, and there's the bell housing and the transmission. So that wasn't too bad. So I'm going to go ahead, disconnect some more things here, and kind of clean up a little bit. And we'll see what else we can get done. All right, some insane things going on here. I got the wiring harness pushed back. Boy, I tell you what, these connectors, you really got to have patience. We got the bolts out of this here, this water housing thing here. We got the hoses in the back disconnected. I got hoses there disconnected, painted. That way I kind of know where all the hoses go, but just a lot of stuff here. And I got this one tube here that goes all the way down underneath this head. I'm going to have to unhook that last after I pull the head off, but I'm going to leave that on there for now. Like stuff like this. How did they get this on there? You can't spin this on there. It'll hit the back of this housing. This has to be pressed on. Just crazy stuff like this, you know. So paint and work a lot of things and a lot of sensors and stuff. So there's the block. We're down to this. I kind of wonder what I got myself into. Now, I think right here, I was wondering how to get to the torque converter bolts. Okay, right here's how you do that. All right, so that's a relief. So really all I have to do is get the bell housing bolts disconnected and a couple bolts on the bottom for the motor mounts. And I haven't decided if we're going to pull the heads off, then pull the block out, or what. But if I do, I got to go ahead and take the belt off, the timing belt. And that's about it. All the wires are disconnected and everything, but not a very big motor once you get all this stuff unhooked. So I'm going to take a shot back to this, clean all this stuff up a little bit, and go from there. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to almost tell you, you got 3 bolts here for this bracket. It's right here with this wiring harness. Just leave it on there because there's a lot of stuff connected to it. That way you can flip all that wiring harness back. That was kind of what I wanted to say earlier, but I forgot that there's part of it there, and there's another piece that kind of goes on there like that, you know. So take lots of pictures and all that. So there we go. All right. So other than finding where the torque converter bolts excess hole is, I'll go ahead and get this hose off here. I'll put my own clamp on there and clean up here a little bit and go from there. So we'll see how it goes. Alright, so we got the top of the engine cleaned up, run a vacuum cleaner across it so nothing falls down in it like it really matters at this point. So we are getting the oil drained out, and there that is, draining pretty nicely. A big 17mm plug there. So we'll put the plug back in there and get this oil all the way. Alright, we got the oil pan here. We got the oil drained, and I saw a couple little specks there. I see something right there, and that is metal. There's definitely something there. See that? So that looks like bearing material. That's exactly what that is. So yeah, so we got some trash in the oil. Not a lot, but there's always a telltale sign there. Alright, so there's that. Alright, so we removed this bracket here out of the way. The reason why we are doing that, we are going to get the starter out of the way. It makes it a little bit easier to get in here. I've already got the starter unhooked. These are 14mm bolts. There's a little bracket there. The starter is pushed back. I literally had to climb up in here to get enough leverage to kind of break those bolts loose like that with a 3/8 drive. 14mm, so the starter's back out of the way. So that looks pretty good there. Take lots of pictures. And one side of that starter has a bracket right there that bolts onto the starter. And there's a little stud sticking out on the back of the engine. And there's a very long bolt here that goes on the top of that starter. So, you know, you got to kind of keep these things in baggies and mark them so you know where they're at. One good thing about leaving the timing belt still on is you can still get this crank here, grab it, and spin this around till you get your torque converter bolts all kind of lined up. So there's some paint on there. Marked it for number 1 because we're going to reuse the torque converter and everything. You can see it's easy to turn there. So we'll go ahead and take all 4 of these out here. That should be fairly easy to do, hopefully. Alright kids, here's where we're at. Alright, so we got all the bell housing bolts out. They're not too bad to get out. You basically got to climb up on there and get your hand down in there. And most of them are 14, and once you get your hand down in there and break them loose, they come off pretty easy. Now, I did get all the torque converter bolts out. There was 4 of them. And if you notice here, we've got a separation here of the bell housing and the engine. Before we get into that real quick, let's go underneath here and I'll show you what I did real quick. I did take the wheel off on the driver's side because my engine hoist, I'm not sure where the forks are for the wheels are going to end up, but I figured one wheel missing here would make it a little bit easier to maneuver. I got a jack under the bell housing. I did take out the 2 bolts that are right here. I think you can see these. Right there my finger is. There's a hole right there. And they're 14, these are 15s. Just 2 nuts, unscrew those are your motor mounts. And up on top, let me climb back up on top here so I don't have to shut the camera off. And I took the bolt out of this motor mount here. It's just kind of laying up on the top up here with all this. And jack that up, and this will give you enough room to get this engine up. And once you do that, and the camera kind of focuses here, you know, it's pretty much ready to come out. How I got this separated, and a lot of people get into a lot of problems trying to get this apart. I took that and also another pry bar and got in here and kind of pushed back on the torque converter and just kind of did this kind of, and it eventually started to pull apart because there's really no way on here for you to get a pry bar in here to separate this. You pretty much got to wiggle it, and I can shake this whole thing now, and as you can see, the whole thing is really loose. And now all I have to do is get my engine hoist and hook it up. Just remember, when you're prying right here back on that torque converter, in this case, this is aluminum, don't just go in there and start pulling like crazy on it. Just take your time wiggling it, and I think this will separate a lot easier for you. And once it separates, you can see you're now right here. Ooh, look at that. I better go get the engine hoist and hook it up. There is one other thing I want to show you underneath. I do have some really good blocks of wood. These are 6x6 little short blocks, one over there underneath the frame, well, the subframe of the car, and the wheel's up in the air about 4 inches. And like I said, that wheel is off, and I will have to leave my jack there under there with that little tiny piece of wood to kind of push up on that bell housing to kind of keep that engine up in the air about 4 or 5 inches. So these bolts right here, these motor mounts, will come out of the hole and kind of clear that cross member or engine cradle, if you will, so we can pull that engine out. So that's that, and I think for safety reasons, that should be okay. You just don't want to go pushing on the car sideways or anything, you know, really hard, but I think that'll be just fine the way I have it set up there. All right, now as you can see, we've got a nice big gap here. The torque converter bolts are out and all that. I did go out to Harbor Freight and buy me an 800-pound 3/16 chain, and I bought a couple of these to help me with my engine hoist to kind of hook this up. And I do have tons of places here to put my chain. I decided to go ahead and leave the head on because there's a couple of nice places here I can hook this chain to. If I take these heads off, I really don't have a lot of good options here, but I think I'll just leave the head on. We'll just pull this out at one time because I want to get this timing belt off and all that. I want to mark it before I pull it off. And I think it would be easier if it's just laid on the floor in the garage where I can just go straight into it. And actually, I can give you guys a better view. So I think I've covered everything I've done here to get this engine out. So now, I guess, I'll go ahead and set up this engine hoist. And let's see if we can get this thing out. All right, everyone, are you ready to party? Let's go ahead and get this out. I got the engine hoist kind of set up and all that. Pretty easy to do. I've got this chain on 4 bolts, 2 on that side, 2 on this side. These are the head bolts, intake bolts, so hopefully they should hold. And we'll start jacking it up here, and I'll go ahead and split it at the same time. See what happens. I can no more fail, right? That's life sometimes, you know? I will have to get that one guide pin down here out. There we go. There. Oh, well, how about that? Hey! Alright. Let me slide the hoist back. Looks like it's about out. And got one long bolt down here, I think. If I get this out, we should be good. We lower it down just a little bit. So it's not I don't think it's going to be as bad as I thought. We get it out there. And I think we're just about out. I might have something down there kind of. Oh, there we go. Got those two really long bolts down in there. I think you can actually see those bolts. See them down there? How long those are? They're probably 6 inches long to go into this block. Now let's pull it back. And look at that. We got our engine out. Hey, if I can do this, you guys can do it. As long as you have an engine hoist. Oop. And there's what it looks like down in there. And how about that? Yay! Let's go ahead and take it on the rest of the way out. Alright, you just might as well watch me bring this up as high as I can get it. Hopefully my camera will stay charged because the battery is really getting bad. It keeps dying on me. Like, not a perfect video, but you'll get the idea how to do this if you want to do this. And you probably have a lot more room than I got. Alright, we should be high enough to get it across the front of the car with that oil pan. So, nice. Just kind of watch me spin it around here and all that. I like it when a plan comes together. There we go. Don't die, battery. Just don't die. Please don't die. Alright, let's go ahead and lower this down. And she's going down, down, down. Hey, what song is that? Let me know in the comments. There she is. She's on the ground. Alright, so there's a look at the back of the engine, the flywheel and all that. Very interesting design. For my bolts, you know, if you're going to do this, make sure you do at least 4 and just kind of center the chain inside the engine block there, and it should be alright. And there's a couple tubes I just left on there, but they're easy to get to now. And also, let's go up here and look inside of the engine bay. Alright, so there's a look at the bay. This is a Forester 2009. It actually was made in December, but the title says 2009. There's the torque, and there's where I marked it with the paint. Seems to be in pretty good shape. And interesting looking exhaust. That's it. And here's where the motor mount bolts are. You just unscrew those nuts and let it slide up out of these mounts here. That's about it. The only hard thing is trying to get all these bolts out, because you got to get back here in an angle and get on the engine and kind of wrench them loose and all that. And there's a couple in the very lower part of this you got to make sure you get to. And of course, you know, I just got the starter kind of sitting back out of the way, and there's that hole that sticks through. So, you know, it's not a perfect video, but you'll get some idea how to do this if you have to do it. And now I'll go ahead and disassemble. Well, I'll go ahead and unhook all this stuff here, put this engine hoist back outside of the way, push this block out of the way, and we'll look at it one more time before we wrap this video up, because this video's gotten pretty long, and we'll probably end up doing a part 2 on disassembling of this and finding out what that knock, 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 knock was inside that thing. So let me clean up here and we'll wrap this video up. Alright, so this $16 chain paid for itself. I didn't even have to use these, but these are always nice to have. So here is a look at the back of the bottom of the engine, and very little, tiny oil pan, not very big. And you can see there's those motor mounts. You got to kind of unbolt. And everything else is pretty small. The nice thing is now I can get to this plastic cover, mark this timing gear when I start taking all this apart. So this will be the end of the video right here, and I will be uploading part 2 as when we tear into this engine. And I'll put a link at the end of this video when I do. So it may be a week or so after this video is posted, but until then, thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, say hello and all that, and until my next video, I will see you later.